When I was a little feller, I was taught that hand tossing was wrong. Now apparently everybody's doing it. I mean, men are doing it, women are doing it. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. And so if everybody's doing it, Bubba's gonna do it.
Bubba!
What?
That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about hand launching a small plane.
Oh, really?
Right.
Well, I don't want to talk about that. Get out and do it.
What's up, everybody? You're watching Model AV8R. My name's Adam, and this week we have the Arrows RC 50mm T-33. Now, these little hand-toss EDFs are super popular right now. Almost every company out there makes some examples of them. A lot of the reviewers are getting into the act. We hadn't done one yet, so we put a poll out a few weeks ago asking viewers whether they'd like to see us review this airplane or an airplane that will be coming out much later in the summer. And my buddy Scott saw that poll and noticed that it was pretty much a dead heat and suggested, hey, why don't you do both? I've got the T-33, you can take mine. I've only flown it once. It's really not even set up all the way. Do whatever you want. Do a review on it. I'd like to see it. Give it back to me set up. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Thank you, Scott. So over the years, I've flown quite a few of the hand tosser EDFs, but it has been quite a while. They've been out for a long time. But there were only a couple of companies that made stuff like that several years ago. Now everybody does. And this one piqued my interest when I saw it on another channel that we watch, Ian's RC Exploits. Now, I mention Ian's channel because he and his girlfriend Cheryl run a really nice channel. I really enjoy watching them. Ian is a very cool chap from across the pond. Love his accent, love Cheryl's accent. I love their banter between the two of them. Ian's a good pilot and a super nice guy. If you haven't checked their channel out, you need to. So go give Ian and Cheryl some love over at Ian's RC Exploits. So I was watching Ian fly this airplane. He's got several videos on it. The first day was not super successful. Had kind of a tough hand launch the first time. Plane didn't really fly good. He ended up actually crashing it the first day because it was tail heavy. Came out the next time and had what he thought to be a really good CG. The suggested CG range of this is 75 to 85 millimeters. Ian suggested 67 millimeters, which he got that information from somebody in his comments that said their club guru had flown it there and they liked it. So Ian flew it there, said he liked it. That was good enough for me. So we knew right off the bat that when we flew this, that's where we were going to get the CG. Now, it took a little doing to get that. Let's take a look at that. Okay, we made a couple of modifications to the plane to be able to get the balance point that we wanted. When you get the airplane, it comes with this forward tray. That tray actually does extend the length of the airplane, and it does have, you can put Velcro rearward if you want to, but it only comes with this one strap. Which is fine if you're using the 1300 3S that they recommend, or even a 2200 3S. The 2200 goes far enough forward. I think the end of it comes to right here is how we figured it, so you can get that strap around it. If you want to use the 2200 4S and get the balance to 67 millimeters from the leading edge of the wing, like we wanted to, there's not a strap to get around the battery when you take it as far back as you need to, because the battery needed to come all the way back to where the end of this new tray is, and that is a new tray. We had to relieve a little bit of this little foam bulkhead here. It looked like that. We took it off on both sides so that the back end of our 4-cell 2200 would fit there, and we installed essentially this entire piece. You can see it from here to here. That still enables you to get the 2200 3S on Velcro and strap it down here. You can actually you can use both straps with the 3-cell, but with the 4-cell, as far back as it is, this gives you a strap by installing that new tray. There's not really a way to get a strap under the existing tray, so we had to epoxy a new one in with a strap already underneath it to be able to have a strap for our 4S pack. Now, we did test the airplane out, since it's not ours, with a 4-cell battery in place back there at that balance point, but I was very careful. I kept the G's positive and made sure that I didn't do anything with the airplane where the fact that we didn't have a strap would cause the battery to fly out of the airplane and cause me to crash. So once we knew that that's where we wanted the balance, and we knew Scott would like it there, we put him a tray in there. You can see we installed our receiver vertically and tidied up the wires to get them out of the way. The vector system's right behind that. That is so we can butt the back of our 2200 4S right here. These wires coming off the receiver fit very neatly right here in this open recess of the hatch. So when you put the hatch on, it just goes right down over that. This is the Arrows Hobby vector system, and it's a pretty cool gyro. You hook the S-bus up to one of your open channels, assign it to a switch, and you can switch between 3 different modes. And that brings us to the modes, and I'm going to try to read this without my old man glasses on, so bear with me. It has a stability mode, a dynamic mode, and a direct mode. The stability mode, the vector will return the aircraft to level flight when no control inputs are detected. That's essentially like safe mode. It's a self-leveling mode. Dynamic mode allows you to retain complete control of the aircraft with the gyro on. That would be like AS3X. And then direct mode, for expert pilots who want to experience a flight experience with no electronic help. In other words, that's with no gyro on. Now, the one thing we wanted to point out, the reason we're even telling you all this, is there is an LED light that flashes on the vector, and the way it flashes determines what mode you're in. And we just wanted to tell you, test that out. Test your modes, because our instructions were not correct. It says that rapid flashes is stabilized. For ours, that's actually dynamic mode. And it says that when the light stays on, that's dynamic mode, and that's actually safe mode on ours. So just make sure you don't go by the instructions and set your switch up based on the lights. Actually move the airplane around and make sure that the mode the light says it's in is actually the mode that it's in before you set your switch. Okay, we'll put our watt meter readings on the setup page like we usually do. We tested it on 3S, 4S with a throttle curve. The interesting thing about flying this airplane on 4S is considering the marketing machine behind Arrows. It's interesting to me that I can't find any literature that says anything other than rated for 3S. All these 50mm Arrows hand tosser EDFs come with a 30 amp speed control, and yet since the very first one a couple of years ago, everybody's been flying them on 4S with no ill effects. So it's interesting that a marketing machine like that doesn't market the plane for 3S or 4S, because either or airplanes like that sell better. You have a broader spectrum of customers that have different kinds of batteries that take more interest when they know that whatever battery they choose, it will work with the airplane. So the fact that they don't do that, I just find a little bit interesting. It means that they're not confident enough to say that based on all the different variables of where people live, the climate, their batteries, their flying style, etc. But that said, a ton of people have been flying these things on 4S. We flew it on 4S. Everybody seems to be getting away with it, despite the fact that on 4S, our meter reading was 40.29 amps. That's a full 10 amps more than what the ESC is rated for. Now, there's a lot of fudge factor with stuff like this, a lot of margin for error and misuse, I guess, if you want to call it that. But nobody's burning these things up. So as a reviewer, we just thought we'd point out what our results were. I can't sit here and say something that Arrows themselves is not willing to say, which is you can fly it on 4S and I guarantee you it'll be fine. But what I can tell you is that a lot of people are flying them on 4S and it's been fine for them. Scott plans on flying this thing on 4S, and if it were mine, I would too. Just saying.
Shut it up and fly it, man.
All right, Bubba. He's right. We'll show you the setup page and then we'll go fly this thing.
It's still been a better video if it's about what I thought it was going to be about. Ha ha!
As we get in the flight, you'll notice that the T-33 is super stable. It's very responsive, even without tremendous amounts of throw, but it's very, very stable. We're going to stall it here, and you'll see that I almost can't get it to go, and when it finally does, it's just a slight brake to the left, and if you release the controls, it easily starts flying again. I was also surprised by the amount of power and punch that the T-33 has on 3S, and this is a bit heavier 3S battery than it calls for. Now, it's not going to set any worlds on fire with 3S by any stretch of the imagination, but it has better vertical and just more punch than I expected on 3-cell. I can say, in all honesty, I could have a really good time with the T-33 on 3S and never feel like I didn't have enough power if I had never flown it on 4S. Once you fly this thing on 4S, it'll ruin 3S for you. .4S really wakes the T-33 up and lets you know just how much potential this little thing actually really has. In all our 4S footage, we're actually using a throttle curve to take a little bit of the amps away and better protect the ESC since it's not our plane. That may not be necessary at all, hasn't been thus far with other people, but you'll notice even at the lower throttle setting on 4S, this thing screams. And now we're going to go right into a stall test with the heavier battery just to see if it makes a difference. And it really didn't. Still a very docile stall, very easy to recover. We tried the vector system out in every mode, and we preferred just setting the airplane up well and flying it without the gyro, but we did appreciate the stability mode for hand launching. You're going to see some footage here of a Cuban 8, and notice that I get on the power late on both ends, and it's by design. There's enough power to push you through the maneuver on 4S. my shot. We're gonna do a touch and go. Hopefully. When the plan comes together. Alright, hope you enjoyed the flying. I know I did. When it comes to summing the Arrows RC T-33 up, it is a gigantic list of superlatives for me. This airplane flies wonderfully. You heard in the flying footage, we flew it without the gyro and used the self-leveling mode to hand launch. We flew it on the gyro. The gyro works fine, but it just, for me, it isn't necessary. The true test of how good an airframe is for me is how well can you get it to fly simply by setting it up without the help of a gyro. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with using a gyro, but there's a big difference in an airframe that's okay and needs a gyro and an airplane that's really good and doesn't. And this is the latter. So I'm very impressed with the flight performance. The fit and finish obviously is great. It's a good looking airplane. You can see where Heidi touched up the canopy and filled in the framework to match the paint. That looks a whole lot better. I suppose you could say Arrows could have done that, but for the price point, $159, I think the way it comes, it's pretty fair. And keep in mind that if you use the battery that they actually recommend, none of the work we did was necessary. The bulk of what you saw today, other than the flying, is us monkeying around forcing using the battery we wanted to use instead of what they recommended. The watt meter testing, the extra battery tray with the strap, none of that's necessary if you just pull this thing out of the box and fly it on a 1300 millimeter 3S. You can use the existing strap. You can get the balance to 67 millimeters where we had it with that battery and that strap. Super easy to get good results with this airplane. The only other thing is the vector system. I suppose you could call that a negative, that what the lights indicated that it did according to the instructions is not what it was actually doing. But I think even that is a little bit of a stretch as far as a negative. It's kind of nitpicky, because the truth is, as the end user, if you have a gyro and it has modes, it's up to you to check it. Make sure it's correcting the right way. Make sure that all the modes are what they say they are, and that you program it onto your switch properly. So that's just kind of part of the modeling, but if you want to call it a negative, I suppose you could. So that pretty much is going to wrap it up for us. We love this thing, highly recommend it. It's just yet another airplane from Arrows RC that delivers and flies great. So yeah, if you're looking for a 50 millimeter hand tosser, this thing is super stable, super capable. It zips on 4S and still goes pretty doggone good on 3S. So yeah, get yourself one at Arrows RC if this is what you're looking for. We sure love it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next week.